Today, we're going to talk about responsible teaching examples. And there's a lot of parts to that if you think about it. But let's take the greatest commandment, and I'm going to take it from the original Hebrew, which is Deuteronomy 6:5. And that says that we're to love God with all our heart, with all our soul, with all our might. And if we do that, as we've talked about before, we surpass everything else. We above ourselves, above our dreams, above our families, above everybody else and everything else. But then, if we really love God that way, we have to love the whole of his creation. Now, we've talked about this before. But the key is, are we going to teach that to our children and to others that we encounter? We teach it in word and in deed. Do we live that example? And that is probably one of the first things that you have to learn to do for responsible teaching. Because if you don't live what you teach, people are going to think you're a hypocrite and they're not going to pay any attention. But if that's reflected in your lifestyle, then it makes a difference. Because people will see it in your life. Now, if we love God this way, we're going to love the whole of his creation. We're not going to leave anything out. We're not going to compromise something. Because when we do, it's irresponsible. We have to remember that God's love, compassion, and empathy is unending. From beginning to end, there's no conditions on it. You either love or you don't love. And there's where the responsibility comes in. Because if you're going to be a teacher, you sure have to be a living example of what you're teaching. Now, get into some of the science, you can't live, theories. You can't become an electron or a proton or something else. You have to understand that it has to do with lifestyle. And that's what makes responsible living. So if we are responsible livers, so to speak, we have to be that example that we give to others, not limit it, not making any excuses. And there's people I know that say, oh, you have to love these people or that, members of our congregation or, members of our community. Well, maybe not everybody. And that's the point. When we start to hear limits to anything about love or compassion or empathy, we know that it's not from God. And therefore, it's irresponsible. Responsible teaching always has to be from the truth of God in his heavenly will, without excuse. And if we don't live that before others, and that'll cover everything else. Because if we're loving the whole of God's creation, that's every other person, every animal, and the environment in which we live. And if you have empathy, you'll feel the pain, the suffering, and the joy. And that's what needs to be conveyed. Anything else is irresponsible, and that's the way the world is living today. We need to be God's responsible teachers of God's ways in everything we do, in our life, and in what we say. Amen.